Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Lisaan-ul-Qur'an, Easier Than English, Lesson 16.
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
The key learning outcomes of this lesson is to develop our knowledge of what we started in Lesson 15, i.e. a close look at the perfect tense or al-madi, an action that has already been completed. It's also called the past tense in English. We will also conjugate two more sets of verbs. One is sami'a, the other is karuma. And you'll note the slight changes between the forms that we've already looked at in the previous lesson. And inshallah, we will look a little bit more detail at the maf'ul bihi, the object, which can be a noun or a pronoun. So we have a lot to cover in this lesson. Let's begin in Allah's blessed name. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. A quick review of Lesson 15. In the previous session, we mentioned that a verbal sentence begins with a verb, and that is its definition, a sentence that begins with a verb. Now, the verb in Arabic can be in three tenses primarily. Either it is the perfect tense, an action that has been complete, or the imperfect tense, the action that has not been completed, or the command form. So far, alhamdulillah, we started looking at the madi, which is the past tense or the perfect tense. The doer of the verb can be in two forms also. Either it is a express noun which comes after the verb, or a pronoun which is embedded within the verb. And we looked at some detail of that in the previous lesson. And I hope, inshallah ta'ala, you've been able to make some notes and review what I went through. Maf'ul bihi, the object, we haven't looked at in any detail. It's been mentioned many times. In this lesson also, we'll go through some detail of that, which can also be two things, essentially, either a noun that comes after the verb, which is in the nasab status, or a pronoun which is attached to the end of the verb. So this will be the two options with the maf'ul bihi. The conjugation of fataha, nasara, and daraba. In lesson 15, we went through all of these three verbs in detail, how they're conjugated. And I hope, inshallah, you're convinced the only thing that has changed in between the three of them is the suffix that comes at the end, which is marked here in this column, which you can see here, inshallah. So it is the ending that gives us 14 different forms. Each one is called a sigha. And of course, I mentioned repeatedly to keep an attention or keep an eye on number 1 and number 4, where there's a possibility of external doer. But you note in all of these three verbs examples that I've given you, the ending is exactly the same, depending on the sigha that it is, and you end up with 14 different forms of the verb. So with the past tense, I gave you the example of the plane flying. When the plane has flown away, you see the back end of the plane when you're standing in the runway. So it is the ending that is telling us what is going on within the verb or who the doer of the verb is. So inshallah, I hope you've had time to practice through these three verbs. I won't have time to go through them again, but please make sure that you are able to repeat them without looking. You're able to write them down without looking through practice, inshallah. And this will be, again, a great investment in your study, because there will be thousands and thousands of verbs that you will come across, which will all end in this way, even though the pattern at the beginning may be slightly different, but the ending will be exactly the same. So every verb in Arabic, the madi verb in Arabic, will have the suffixes that are listed here on the screen for your benefit. So please make a special attention and pay attention to the ending in particular. So the verbs we looked at in lesson 15 all have the three root letters in sigha number 1 without any addition. All they have is a vowel sign on each one. And as you know, the first and the last are always fatha. Middle one can be fatha, dhamma, or kasra, but in this pattern, they're all fatha. So we have fa'ala, which rhymes with fataha, which means to open. And that was the example of the verb that we looked at, fataha. The aim of going through the verbs in the way I have gone through is to really try and teach you to do this for yourself. So all you do is whenever you're told there's a new verb, which is in the madi, the past tense, all you need to do is add these suffixes and create 14. This screen has all the notes that you need to enable you to do that to any past tense verb that you get. So this was the very important slide which I shared with you. I hope, inshallah ta'ala, you are able to make sense of it and you are able to make the notes that's necessary. Again, my intentions right from the beginning when I ventured into this is really to give you all that you need, so that you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours studying, looking for information from here, there, and everywhere. Just have it in one place. And that is all that you need with Madi. Trust me, even up to advanced level, inshallah ta'ala. All we need to worry about is the this part, which is the verb part pattern, which we will know about either from the dictionary or from the Quran itself when we come across the verb. The rest is something that you need to acquire, inshallah. For the sake of practice, inshallah, we'll do nasara, which we've done in the previous lesson, for the sake of practice, inshallah. So nasara is your first key. Once you know nasara, you should be able to do all the others. So let's do that, inshallah, together. This is just a revision. I'm sure you can remember it from the previous lesson. So you have nasara, which is he helped. Okay, don't worry about the translation at this stage. Nasara, he helped. They too helped is nasara, they helped, nasaru. Nasara, nasara, nasaru. For she helped is nasarat. For they too helped, nasarata and nasarna. Nasarna. Please pay attention at number 6 is where the third root letter now takes a sukoon. Prior to that, it was all fatha, fatha, fatha. Now the third root letter is now taking a sukoon. From now on, every other verb will take a sukoon on the third root letter. And I'm sure you know what I mean by sukoon, which is here. So it's nasarna, nasarna. From here, it's relatively easy. So let's do them together. Nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum. Then we have nasarti, nasartuma, nasartunna. And then for I, we have nasartu and nasarna. Nasartu, nasarna. This is what we did in the previous lesson. Conjugate, samia, hasiba, karuma. A quick reminder again, the 3 root letter verb, fa, ain and lam as our example, x, y and z. The first root letter in the madi will be with fatha. The madi meaning huwa, it will be fatha. So sigha number 1, huwa fa'ala. And the second root letter can take a dhamma, fatha or a kasra. And the third root letter will also take a fatha. So this is your number 1 sigha. If you know this one, then the 14 you can develop very, very quickly using the suffixes I've given you. So either the dictionary will tell you this information or you'll see it and you'll be able to recognize it by looking at the shape. So 3 root letters with fatha in each. So using that as a template, we did 3 examples, fataha, nasara, and daraba. Now we're going to look at an example where we have the middle root letter taking a kasra, not a fatha. So we have the example, the template, fa'ila, fa'ila. So we can take an example with the verb sin, mim, and ain are the 3 root letters giving us sami'a. Sami'a, he heard or he listened. He heard or he listened. Sami'a. So again, please note here, it is not sama'a, it is sami'a. In the middle root letter taking a kasra, so we have a different pattern. Now, if you've learned this well so far with me and lesson 15, you've revised it, you've done it correctly, inshallah, I'm confident. All you need to do is replace what is in column E with sami'a, and you should be able to do all the conjugation yourself, even without my help. But don't worry, I'll go through it with you. So all we're doing really is changing what's in column E with 3 root letters. Instead of fataha, we have sami'a. Everything else is static, or everything else is the same as we see in this example. So let's form the 14 different forms of the verb to hear, meaning he heard, using the root letters sin, mim, and ain. The first one will be very easy because I've already shown you that, sami'a. The point I'm trying to get at, brothers and sisters, for you to realize is that if you can recognize number 1, then you can do all the other 14, because all you're going to do is add the same suffixes we did with fataha, nasara, daraba, and therefore it should be relatively easy. So all you need to know as far as vocabulary is concerned, number 1, and you make 14 forms. So buy 1, get 14 free, grand sale with every past tense verb that you get. So you don't need to make a whole list of vocabulary with hundreds and thousands of words. If you know how to form the 14 yourself, you never have to write any of them down. You just write sami'a and put in bracket that it falls into this pattern, and you're ready to go, inshallah. So let's do that together. So the first one we have is sami'a, then we have sami'a, then we have sami'u, and for the feminine we have sami'at, sami'ata, sami'na. I hope there is no complexity here, inshallah, and the light bulbs are lighting in your heart and your mind how easy this is. So again, number 6, the third root letter has sukun, and I'm sure what you know what sukun means there, which you can see. Now the rest are very, very easy. Once you go to number 6, the rest is very, very easy and it'll flow in your tongue. So ready? The next one. Sami'ta, sami'tuma, sami'tum. For the feminine, sami'ti, sami'tuma, sami'tunna. And for I, sami'tu, sami'na. I hope you agree. All we've done is change the first 3 root letters in a different pattern. Now we have the rest at our disposal. So buy one, get 14 free. Let's do it one more time, inshallah, for practice. We can all repeat this again and again until this becomes second nature to us. Sami'a, sami'a, sami'u. Sami'at, sami'ata, sami'na. Sami'ta, sami'tuma, sami'tum. Sami'ti, sami'tuma, sami'tunna. Sami'tu, sami'na. So I've added now the sami'a version to the table. So you have your 4 verbs now. The first 3 were all fataha, nasara, daraba. This one now is sami'a with a kasra in the middle root letter. The rest is exactly the same, which you can see here on the screen. So what is the point of this? The point of this is if you hear a verb which rhymes with any of these in the 14 forms, you should be instantly able to recognize which pattern it belongs to. So I'll give you one example. Let's see if you can recognize it. Khalaqtu. Where do you think that one's come from? Look at number 13. Fa'altu, fatahtu, nasartu, darabtu, sami'tu. It doesn't rhyme with sami'tu, but this is khalaqtu. So pattern. So again, very easily, inshallah ta'ala, you can recognize it. If I say, for example, sami'at, instantly you should say this is number 4. If I say, for example, daraba, it's number 1. That's how fast, inshallah ta'ala, you'll become. And don't worry, it's all about practice. That's all. Information is already there for you. We're going to practice one more verb with a kasra in the middle. As I said, there are hundreds and thousands of verbs. We'll be practicing them all day, and the lesson could be for hours long. But the point about practice is to use them. So inshallah ta'ala, as long as you're practicing at home, you should be able to now very soon be able to recognize them in the Quran with any other verb from any other root. As long as it rhymes with one of these verbs or fits the pattern, you should be able to do it. We have another verb here now. We have ha, sin, and ba. 3 root letters. It means to take account of as a basic meaning. So we have hasiba. Now the rest should be easy for you. Know the first one, you can do all of the rest. So pause the video, have a go, and come back. Okay, let's do them together. Hasiba, hasiba, hasibu. Hasibat, hasibata, hasibna. Hasibta, hasibtuma, hasibtum. Hasibti, hasibtuma, hasibtunna. Hasibtu, hasibna. That's your 14 form. Again, another one with kasra in the middle. And you have another screen, inshallah, taken short of this one, where you have the 4th verb now added onto our list. So we have 2 with E in the middle sound. So meaning the middle root letter taking a kasra. So again, quickly remind you, fataha, nasara, daraba, sami'a, hasiba. And that's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verb patterns. Don't worry, it'll make sense, inshallah, when we go to the Mudari where I'm teaching you these ones. But again, these are all example verbs and taken from the Quran, the most frequently used verbs, inshallah. So now I've added the last one, hasiba, also onto the same table. So take a picture of this one, inshallah. And I'm going to give you a list of the most commonly occurring verbs in the Quran with the kasra in the middle. I gave you the one with the fatha earlier. So this is another screen. So for example, you have here hazina, okay, to grieve. Hafidha, to guard or protect. Khasira, loss. He lost, for example. Rahima, he showed mercy. Shahida, he witnessed. Alima, he knew. Amila, he worked. Fariha, he rejoiced. Kariha, he disliked. And lastly, labitha, he stayed. So you can see these verbs now all following the E in the middle, again following the sami'a pattern, which you can see on the screen as a full. So my guess is that you should be able to take any of these verbs, make the 14 forms, and you see them appear in the Quran. The numbers I've given on the screen also for you, that particular root, how many times it appears in its various forms. You can see very commonly occurring verb patterns in the Quran with the middle root letter taking a kasra. We also have another form where the middle root letter takes a dhamma. So no, it's not fa'ala, fa'ila, is fa'ula, fa'ula. So we have another example here where you can see the middle root letter taking a dhamma. We'll give you one example of a verb for that is karuma, to become noble, or he was noble. Now, before I go on to give you this one as an example, please note the one with the dhamma in the middle is very, very, very rarely used in Arabic, also in Quranic Arabic. The reason why I'm including it here is because there are some nouns which are derived from this pattern. Verbs are very, very rare from here. And as mentioned already earlier to you, that from the three root letters, not only do we derive verbs, but we can also derive some nouns. And therefore, it's an important pattern to learn. But as far as examples are concerned, very few Madi verbs or even Mudare verbs you'll find in the Quran from this pattern. Karuma, very rare. So in this screen now you have the three template, Fataha, Sami'a, Karuma. You can see the middle root letters changing from Fatha, Kasra to Dhamma. And that's it. There is no other fourth option as far as the Madi Sigha number 1 is concerned for the Mujarrad pattern, which is the three root letter base form. Please note that there is none. So there's nothing with the sukun in the middle or anything else, or there can't be anything else anyway, but that's the only three options that you have. Fataha, Sami'a, Karuma. The first and the last root letter always Fatha. The middle root letter will take a Fatha, Kasra or Dhamma. And that is the Madi, the active voice verb in the past tense. We're going to quickly go to the Karuma pattern just once, inshallah ta'ala. Please don't spend a lot of time on this one as it is very, very rare. So exactly the same principle. Karuma, Karuma, Karumu, and then Karumat, Karumata, Karumna, Karumta, Karumtuma, Karumtum, Karumti, Karumtuma, Karumtunna, Karumtu, Karumna. So a very rarely used pattern, but it's there in Arabic, so we've included for you, inshallah, for your benefit. Finally, you have all the 6 verbs that we've been practicing so far, all in the Madi, and the point of giving you these 6 is to give you enough example that every verb that you find in the Quran, every verb you find in the Arabic language, which are based upon the 3 root letters only, the Mujarrad, they will always look into one of these 6 patterns, inshallah ta'ala, or technically only 3 patterns. So it'll be either Fataha, Sami'a, or Karuma. Karuma, very, very rare in Arabic. So that's all you need to know. Again, the plain to remind you is the ending that is giving you the doer of the verb and the 14 forms. Again, remember, it is only number 1 and number 4 that will give us the external doer. The others will be just to express the pronoun themselves. Some examples of perfect tense verbs from the Quran. Alhamdulillah, we've covered now all the past tense patterns for group 1. That is the 3 basic root patterns where it can be fa'ala as a template, fa'ila, or fa'ula. So you can see that, alhamdulillah, the examples we have is fataha, nasara, daraba. Then we also have sami'a, hasiba, and karuma. So either the middle root letter can take a fatha, dhamma, or kasra, and that will cover every past tense form that we have for group 1. Please note only group 1, which is the only 3 base root letter forms. Of course, there are many verbs than the ones I've shared with you on the screen. The skill really you have to develop is as long as you can recognize one of them, you should be able to recognize any of them, even though you may or may not know the meaning. Now, the past tense verbs in the Quran are used almost 9,000 times. That means not only group 1, but all the groups, you'll see them almost on every line. But these ones, particularly from group 1, are very commonly used in the Quran. So I'm going to share with you some common examples of verbs that you'll find in the Quran, and I want you to see if you can recognize them from which one of the 14 it falls into, inshallah. And that's all you have to do. So let's go through the screen. Now, before I do that, just one quick kind reminder to you. Alhamdulillah, you're now on lesson number 16. We're going through different aspects of Arabic. Until and unless you actually open the Quran yourself and try to look for the past things we've covered so far, the knowledge will not stick. So please open the Quran and see if you can start recognizing now the past tense verb from group 1, which will have these 3 patterns, and of course the suffixes you should by now be familiar with. So the first one is very easy. Alam tara kaifa fa'ala. I've even highlighted it in red for you. Which form is it? Well, it's very easy. It's number 1. Fa'ala. I'm sure you know this surah. Please check, inshallah, in your own time for translation. At this stage, I'm not going to go through the ayah in any detail, just the verb practice, inshallah. So fa'ala, he did. The verb means to do. Fa'ala, he did. Very similar to fataha. Fataha, there is nothing else in the verb. There is no addition, there is no suffix. Simply the three root letters, all of them taking fatha. So therefore, it is a verb. But as a way of hinting, please can you take a look at the word before? That word is kaifa. Now, do you think that is a verb or not? Kaifa. From what I've taught you already. It cannot be, can it? Because the middle root letter has sukoon. So it is not a verb, right? It's something else. It's a questioning word. But nonetheless, kaifa is not a verb. Why? Even though it's got three letters only, fatha the first one, fatha the last one, but the middle letter does not have a fatha, it has a sukoon. So it is not of our pattern. And again, just an interesting one to look at. Don't worry, you'll be learning those at a later date when we look at questioning words. Second example, falamma balagha. Please try to work out which one this is. Which form of the 14 do you think this is? If you said number 2, you'll be 100% correct. Number 2. You can see the extra alif, balagha, with the alif at the end. So that is 2 persons doing that act. The balagha means to reach. So when the 2 of them reached, that's what the ayah means. Again, please go and check the reference in your own time in more detail. So this is number 2. Balagha. Okay, balagha. Even though we have not learned this verb, you should be now able to recognize the pattern. Next example, you can see highlighted in red, kharaju. Which pattern do you think this forms into? Well, we have the middle root letter has a fatha. The third letter has a dhamma followed by a waw. So the example has to be this one, number 3. Kharaja, kharaja, kharaju. They came out. They came out. I hope you can see that from the pattern that it is number 3. Even though we don't know the verb, we can still tell that this is number 3, meaning third person, plural. Next example, kullama dakhalat. Which one is it? Which one of the 14 pattern does it fall into? Again, you'll note the first, second, and the third letter has fatha. So the only possibility is number 4. Number 4. Dakhalat. Dakhala. Dakhalat. Dakhalat means to enter. Dakhalat. Next, alhamdulillah, you know the text of this. I'm sure you know this dua. So again, just focus on the red word highlighted there. Zalamna. Zalamna. Which one is it? Again, you can see dhala and then mim with sukoon. Mim with sukoon is the third root letter with sukoon, and then na afterwards. And I hope straight away you recognize that this is number 14. Zalamna. We have wronged. Zalamna. We have wronged. Zalama. He has wronged. So zalamna, we have wronged. Again, I hope now this exercise is helping you to start to recognize the suffixes at the end of the verb, which is telling us the doer. Again, remember the hint of the aeroplane. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, just few examples I wanted to share with you, just to show you that what you're learning is not really just 3 verbs. What you're learning is a pattern. And it's the pattern that you need to try and recognize. Inshallah, with a little bit of practice, this will become very, very easy. Now, I have mentioned several times that this is only group 1, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Believe me and trust me, all the other groups are exactly identical when it comes to the Madi, the past tense. The only thing that happens is the changes at the beginning. The suffix is exactly the same. So you will now start to recognize even other patterns, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc., relatively easily by focusing on the suffixes that you've seen on the first set that we've gone through. So alhamdulillah, I do not need to give you any more examples of past tense verbs. Inshallah, next lesson, we're going to move over to the present and future tense verb, which is called the mudare. For the second part of this lesson, number 16, I've got a bit more practice. I'm going to show you some of the common prefixes or things that go before the verb and how they impact on the changes on the meaning of the verb also. So that's one part that's left. And also we're going to look at the object in 2 forms. Either it will be declared noun or it will be a pronoun. So those are the 2 things that are left from this lesson. So Jazakumullah khairan once again for taking part. I hope and pray that you found this part beneficial. Inshallah, I'll see you at the second part of lesson number 16. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
الذي علم بالقلم